Hi, Gene here with today's thought. And today we'll be talking about two related subjects. One subject, the base subject, I guess you could call it, would be discrimination. Discrimination on college campuses. And the second related subject would be how to handle it, or more specifically, what the federal government should be doing. And we'll be illustrating this with a very important, very well-known example from history. Basically, this is going to be a comparison between an honorable, courageous president and a dishonorable, utterly craven president. As you can probably guess by now, the craven president would be Joe Biden. Now, who is the courageous, honorable president? That would be, or was, Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, what we're going to be talking, you should already know about this, but I don't trust our educational system today, so I don't know how much it's covered. But we're talking about, well, of course you know about the quote-unquote demonstrations that are turning violent now, pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic, frankly, demonstrations all across the country in these various college campuses. It started out with, I guess, just marching and chanting, death to Israel, death to America, and more importantly, death to Jews. So those chants have been heard also. Now, as you may know, because you're seeing this day after our recording, well, you must know, at Columbia, we've gone beyond tents, and chanting. They were given, the president of Columbia gave the students, they gave them a deadline of 2 p.m. yesterday, day before I'm recording this, to vacate, and if they didn't, they would be suspended. And the students responded by, well, first of all, that president let that deadline go by, then finally started suspending students, and their response has been, as you know by now, taking over a building, breaking windows, holding a couple of janitors hostage until I believe they managed to get out. And what's more important is what's more important, what I really want to talk about today, we're talking about discrimination, the treatment of Jewish students. Now, we all know that they've been harassed, or you all know that, and made to feel so threatened on these campuses that, at least at Columbia, they're afraid to go to class. And the president of Columbia has instituted Zoom, remote learning. Okay, Columbia costs $90,000 a year. That's a tuition, and these Jewish students can't go. Jewish students there was a case just recently, and it's not the first one, and not the only one, but just to give one example, because we're talking about Columbia, where Jewish students were prevented from entering they were blocked by a line of these demonstrators, and this student had to go around a back way to get in. But who knows what's going to happen in the future. But what is to be done with this? Now, we have a president of the United States who made a kind of a milquetoast of the usual, well, it's wrong, it's hate speech, or it's hateful, or whatever, but has done absolutely nothing. Now, that's what a craven president does or doesn't do. Now, what does an honorable, courageous president who believes in the rule of law, what does he do? Well, the example, as I mentioned, the president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, the example that you should know about, but who knows these days with you can see what's happening on this college, the quality of education they're getting. So I'll give you a little summary. I should just be able to say Little Rock, but that's not enough. So go back to an earlier decision, turn of the 20th century decision, Plessy versus Ferguson, and it had to do with there was a train had separate cars for white passengers and black passengers, and it went to the Supreme Court to saying that that's unconstitutional. You have to black people should be able to sit in any coach, any train car that they want to. So that Supreme Court in this decision said, well, that as long as the quality of both cars was the same, that was okay. In other words, it was a doctrine of separate but equal. And that stayed on the books. That's what allowed these segregated schools in the South for literally decades until 1954, I believe it was, the Brown v. Board of Education. Now, Brown was a college student, a black student, who wanted to go to a white high school. And the court, that Supreme Court, struck down the Plessy versus Ferguson decision that I just mentioned to you, and said that you had to integrate, that black people had the same right to go to a quote unquote white high school as a white person. And what happened was the governor of the example was that I'm talking, the specific example that led to Eisenhower's actions, so different from Biden's actions, was 9 black teenagers went to this high school to attend class, and they were blocked. They were blocked by not a mob, but by the National Guard. That was called out by the governor. The governor called out the National Guard, and the National Guard blocked these black students from entering the school. Now we get to Dwight D. Eisenhower, and I'm going to show you on a video. It's going to be, I'm putting in the description the entire statement that he made, but what I'm going to show you is about 4 minutes, and it's worth watching all of it. 4 minutes, a statement of Eisenhower, what he did. And before I tell you what he did, I'll just let him tell you what he did. This is a very important speech, and then I'll have a comment after the video. So right now, here is an honorable, courageous president who, I have to mention that he won World War II. He was the supreme commander of the Allied forces in World War II. So his courage obviously is unquestioned. But here is Dwight D. Eisenhower speaking on, I believe, September 24th, 1957.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. For a few minutes this evening, I should like to speak to you about the serious situation that has arisen in Little Rock. To make this talk, I have come to the President's office in the White House. I could have spoken from Rhode Island, where I have been staying recently. But I felt that, in speaking from the house of Lincoln, of Jackson, and of Wilson, my words would better convey both the sadness I feel in the action I was compelled today to make, and the firmness with which I intend to pursue this course until the orders of the federal court at Little Rock can be executed without unlawful interference. In that city, under the leadership of demagogic extremists, disorderly mobs have deliberately prevented the carrying out of proper orders from a federal court. Local authorities have not eliminated that violent opposition. And under the law, I yesterday issued a proclamation calling upon the mob to disperse. This morning, the mob again gathered in front of the Central High School of Little Rock, obviously for the purpose of again preventing the carrying out of the court's order relating to the admission of Negro children to that school. Whenever normal agencies prove inadequate to the task, and it becomes necessary for the executive branch of the federal government to use its powers and authority to uphold federal courts, the President's responsibility is inescapable. In accordance with that responsibility, I have today issued an executive order directing the use of troops under federal authority to aid in the execution of federal law at Little Rock, Arkansas. This became necessary when my proclamation of yesterday was not observed, and the obstruction of justice still continues. It is important that the reasons for my action be understood by all our citizens. As you know, the Supreme Court of the United States has decided that separate public educational facilities for the races are inherently unequal, and therefore compulsory school segregation laws are unconstitutional. Our personal opinions about the decision have no bearing on the matter of enforcement. The responsibility and authority of the Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution are very clear. Local federal courts were instructed by the Supreme Court to issue such orders and decrees as might be necessary to achieve admission to public schools without regard to race and with all deliberate speed. During the past several years, many communities in our southern states have instituted public school plans for gradual progress in the enrollment and attendance of school children of all races in order to bring themselves into compliance with the law of the land. Thus they demonstrated to the world that we are a nation in which laws, not men, are supreme.
That's what a courageous, honorable, more importantly, honorable president does. Somebody who is not concerned with placating an anti-Semitic wing of his party or well, Eisenhower called out the National Guard he nationalized as you saw, he nationalized the National Guard and ordered them to escort these black students into that high school, and that ended segregation. Now compare that to this president who has done nothing about Jewish students not being allowed to go into being blocked from entering their campuses. And the fact that this one student was able to go around to a back door, that's not that's like sitting in the back of the bus if you're a black person before Rosa Parks. That's and you should all know who she is. I hope I don't have to explain that. If you let me know in the comments if you need me to. But that's not the point. You should be able to. Jewish students should be able to walk in to his classes and be treated respectfully. But in this case, at least just to be able to walk in. And what should Biden do? Biden should do, but I predict he won't. And I hope to be proven wrong, and I'll be happy to admit it if I'm proven wrong. But he should nationalize the New York National Guard and order them to escort these Jewish students into their whatever campus it is, to escort them into the school. And I would go farther and say disperse all these students. I would like police there to arrest them. They should all be charged and convicted. I don't know how in Columbia, New York, I don't know how likely that is. Probably not very likely, but they should be. Most of all, and it's a very minimum remedy, their names and photos from their student ID cards should be published, posted on the internet, so prospective hirers at, say, law firms, if you're talking about law students, but any employer, if somebody applies for a job, can go on the internet and type in the person's name and see if that person participated in these demonstrations that are quickly becoming riots, and they have a right to know. Okay, and but to get back to my main point, just to re-emphasize again the difference between an honorable, courageous president and a dishonorable, utterly craven president, Joe Biden. And I guess that's my thought for today. Thanks for stopping by. If you could subscribe, that would really be great. Your comments are welcome in the comment section below this video. Share this video with anyone you think would benefit from it. But most of all, come back and see me again. I would love to see all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.